Hey everybody, welcome to Charlie's Workshop here at AC Beverage in Annapolis, Maryland. We're going to be talking a little bit about FOBs today. You're going to hear some noises in the background. Don't worry, that's just us making sure people have great beer pouring all across the country. Today we're going to talk about the core components FOB and how it can help us save some money at the bar. We're going to have some helpful hints for bartenders in changing kegs and making the core FOB work to your advantage. We've got some handy materials for you to look at, help you out while you're changing the kegs, and so hopefully we can keep your bar moving quickly and efficiently, serving guests great beer every day. So there are a few different mistakes that can be made while working with the core FOBs, and part of it, the very first and most important step, is probably paying attention while we're pouring a beer. As the beer is coming out, once the core FOB, the float drops in the cylinder, it cuts off the flow of the beer to the bar. If we leave the faucet open, that allows beer to empty out of the line, and that will allow the beer then to foam up in the line. So our goal is to really prevent all that foam from building up inside of the FOB. So we'll talk about recognizing that at the bar, and then we'll go through all the steps in the cooler necessary to tap a new keg, properly vent the FOB so it's full of beer, and then dislodge the float so you can now reestablish flow all the way to the bar. One of the most important habits to get into with a FOB system is recognizing when the beer is running out. You may be used to getting splashed out of the glass, foam all over the bar, having to clean up as the signal that you've run out of beer in the keg, right? Well, with a FOB system, the whole goal is to not have that happen, is to maintain all that beer inside the line. So what you'll find is that you'll have to recognize that the beer starts to slow down coming out of the faucet. If your bar is very close to the cooler, you'll notice it drop off very dramatically. You just need to get that tap shut as quickly as you can. So we determined that we're running out of beer. We saw the flow slow down out of our faucet. We shut the faucet positively to trap all that beer in there between the keg box and our beer tower. Now we're going to run back to the cooler and make a keg change. Three important steps to making a keg change with the FOB. One is changing the keg. Identify the keg that's empty, move the tavern head to a new keg. Before installing it, go ahead and clean off the valve, make sure there's no grit or dust or grime, and it's always a good idea to give it a quick spritz with an approved sanitizer to clean everything up before you tap that keg. So go ahead and install the coupler, drop the handle. So now we've got our keg tapped. That's the first step, okay? Step number two is going to be venting the FOB. The float's going to be at the bottom, and there's going to be air all inside the cylinder. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and press the vent button. That's going to allow the air to escape. The beer will be pushed up out of our keg into the FOB when this glass is full, and also this line between the keg and the FOB, make sure that that's free of bubbles as well, because you can certainly get a bubble in there that'll swing out and give you some problems when you go back out to otherwise start pouring your beer again. You'll get an air bubble up and that'll drop your float again. So very important to look at the line itself as well. Number three, we're going to turn it up into the red portion. That's going to dislodge our float so it goes up inside the sight glass. Now, the last half of that equation is turning this down into the reset position, because that's the run mode. That's the position for pouring beer. And that's going to ensure that when the keg does run out, the float is able to go down and block the entire line between cooler and tower at the bar. So we know what it looks like when a keg starts to run out of beer, but what happens if we don't catch that slackening of the flow and we just kind of leave that faucet open and wonder, oh, holy cow, it's flowing slower, but I'm not really going to do anything here for a minute. Well, that is actually an error, and that's going to cause us some trouble. So what will happen is we'll recognize that eventually, and we'll close the faucet. We'll go back and we'll change out our keg, and the float's going to be in the bottom of the sight glass as you would expect. Everything's going to look normal back there in the bar, but there's a bunch of air bubbles, gas bubbles building up inside of those beer lines right now between your cooler and the bar. So what'll happen is you'll go ahead and you'll tap the keg and you'll go ahead and vent the FOB properly, and you'll go ahead and get the float dislodged and up to the top, and you'll go out and pour your first beer, and you'll notice that you're getting shots of foam. It's back to those old days before FOBs, like prehistoric times, right? When we don't want to be spraying beer around, we want to use it efficiently, we want to use your bartender's time efficiently. It's all very important, and it keeps the bar clean and looks much more professional as well. So this is a common error that a bartender may make. So everything stays the same inside the cooler when we go back to change the keg. We identify the keg, we tap the new one, we vent the FOB, we go ahead and dislodge the float. We'll notice if we've left the faucet open for too long that there's going to be a rush of beer out to the beer line and to the bar. And then when we get out to the bar, if we've heard that little rush of beer, we should probably expect to get a little foam in the face when we open up our tap, right? So that's the best incentive to pay attention while you're pouring, is to not get the foam in the face. So we've taken a few minutes to talk about the basic operations of the core components FOB. We've talked about recognizing when the beer runs out at the faucet. That's a very important piece. We need to pay attention to that. We also found out, well, what can happen if we don't pay attention to the beer coming out the faucet. We're probably going to get some foam in the face when you go to pour a beer next time, right? We don't want that. We've talked about tapping a new keg, venting the FOB, and then dislodging the float, the basic operations of this unit. So you should be set to go to operate it, but always remember, you know, we include with every FOB, we've got this handy dandy user guide. It'll walk you through. It's a great reminder. Staff should probably cover this occasionally when you're doing cooler cleanouts and maintenance days inside the cooler, so you know that everybody's on board with what needs to happen here. So thanks for stopping by Charlie's workshop today. Really appreciate it. Cork and Components FOBs, going to save the world one beer at a time, because beer is a terrible thing to waste.